12. Alexander Helios was just emerging from the calidarium of the baths of Antonius, in a billow of steam and swathed in towels, when Vitellius found him. A group of Alexander's usual followers were also in attendance. He gestured for Vitellius to join them as they strode across the marble of the lofty central hall, through an archway, and out into the open-air frigidarium. The group threw off their towels and plunged into the cool waters of the great pool and started to swim lazy lengths, leaving Vitellius waiting impatiently by the steps. After some minutes, Alexander emerged and was wrapped in a fresh robe by an attendant. He spoke a few light words to his friend on the tiresome need to discuss affairs of state, and they hung back while he walked Vitellius through a long hall until they emerged into the peace and order of a peristyle garden court. They found a secluded bench and sat down. "So, Vitellius, how did dear Caesarion respond to my proposal?" "Not how I would have wished, dictator. He absolutely refused to give his support under any conditions. His manner was, if I may observe, most insulting to me personally, which I could bear, but what he implied about your noble self—" He trailed off, looking like a man whose sensibilities would only be further offended if he was asked to relate any details. Alexander's handsome features darkened, and his eyes narrowed. "I see. This is not good, Vitellius. You led me to believe he would accept my new proposals." "I regret I was wrong, dictator," Vitellius admitted simply, looking Alexander squarely in the face. "Perhaps I let my desire for an amicable conclusion cloud my judgment." For a moment, Alexander regarded him intently, and it was uncertain what way his mood would take him. Then he gave a brief, good-humoured chuckle. "That is what I like about you, Vitellius. There is no pretense. When you make a mistake, you admit it, and accept the responsibility. And when you have something hard to tell me, you do not shirk the task. In my position, all I seem to meet are those who tell me what they think I want to hear, and apparently lead totally blameless personal lives." "You are too kind, dictator, but I regret there is more to tell. It was only an impression I gained, mind. Nothing that was actually said." "Well, I fear Ptolemy Caesar intends to gather support in the Senate and oppose you openly." Anger swiftly replaced amusement. "That would be a step too far," Alexander spat. "They have tolerated Caesarion while he confined himself to trivial matters and kept our disagreements private. I would let him be if he kept his unsettling stories and foolish ideas to himself. But this is too much." He was silent in thought for several minutes. Then he took a deep breath, as though he had come to a difficult decision. "All right, Vitellius. If it must be done, then it must be today, as we discussed. I shall put the matter in hand immediately, dictator. It will be done within hours. Remember, this will be turned to your advantage." "Yes, I know, but I had hoped with Caesarion—" He shook his head almost in sorrow. "But such is life. By the by, is there any news of my sister's progress?" "As far as I know, she will arrive on time, dictator. I have received no reports of any incidents to cause her delay." "Oh well, it was only a long chance that Fabio might find opportunity to use what we sent him. We must simply rely on our principal plan, that is all." "A pity. It would have been so much simpler otherwise." Alexander bowed his head for a moment, as though suddenly weary. "My, but these are weighty decisions to bear." "It is said that the crown weighs heavy on the head that rules." "A crown? I have only worn a laurel crown, and that was not heavy. And a man stood behind me saying, 'Remember, you are mortal.' That was no true crown." "No, dictator, I did not mean that sort of crown. I meant one such as the old kings of Rome wore, and those of Egypt. A crown which marks divine power, as it is your destiny to wear." "But the people must want it too, Vitellius. You know that." "The moment will come, dictator. Soon." "Hi, Doctor. Where have you got to now?" Perry inquired. "Say, this looks like a pretty weird place." The description was not unkind. As Perry could see through the hidden camera, Themos's workroom closely resembled the den of an eccentric alchemist. Under a ceiling hung with many oil lamps, the benches and shelves that ranged the walls were cluttered with an irregular jumble of artifacts that told of their owner's wide range of interests. One stack of shelves spilled over with both scrolls and fully bound books. Another held unidentifiable biological specimens floating in preserving jars. On a bench was an impressive array of jars, flasks, and pipes, resembling a miniature chemical factory. Hung on a clear section of wall was a full set of wooden geometric templates, and something Perry tentatively decided might be a large astrolabe. Beside these tools were pinned a star chart and a world map. As the Doctor turned, the camera revealed the long tube of a refracting telescope mounted on a tripod that was sitting in a corner. "Sorry, Galileo, you're too late this time," Perry thought. Themos himself could be seen scrabbling about on his littered central work table, as though searching for something. The Doctor raised his hand, ostensibly to scratch his nose, and under cover of which said, "This is the house of Themos of Perseus, and he has brought me back here to show me proof of something rather disturbing, if it's true." "So who is this guy? Rome's first research scientist? A philosopher of natural phenomena? Weren't you paying attention earlier? Sorry, I just had these tomb robbers to deal with." "What? Perry, are you all right?" For a moment, the tenderness that the Doctor seemed to hide beneath his superior mannerisms was revealed, and Perry sensed the true depth of his concern. "Oh, sure," she responded, dismissing the matter lightly. "I chased them off, no problem. The thing is, I overheard one say that Cleopatra's coffin had been taken out of the tomb a month ago. But we know all the seals were still in place when we arrived, and they didn't look like they were only a month old, did they?" Strange. Themos told me the same thing. We may have to look into that later. Meanwhile, I want to see what he has discovered." "Is it important?" "Only the end of the world." "Oh." Themos had found the papers he had been searching for, and had laid them out for the Doctor to examine. "You have no idea what a relief it is to find an intelligent listener these days," he was muttering half to himself. "I have tried to alert my fellows to what I have found, but they wouldn't take any notice. That is the price of individualism and pride, I suppose." He appeared disconsolate, but at least the walk from the brown bear had cleared his head. He perched himself on a high stool. "Now," he continued in lecturing tones, "with the aid of the new magnifying tube," he waved at the telescope, "which I had obtained a few months ago, I had hoped to improve on some of the observations made by those in the past, Hipparchus of Nicaea, for instance. But my problems first began when I attempted to duplicate the quite elementary experiment first performed by Eratosthenes of Alexandria some, 2.5 centuries ago, whereby he calculated the circumference of the Earth by comparing the changing angles of incidence of the sun's rays in different locations." He paused, frowning, and looked doubtfully at the Doctor. "You are aware, I trust, that the Earth is a spherical body?" "I am," replied the Doctor, with the slightest hint of a smile. Good. Anyway, I repeated the observations and compared them with the original results, and they were quite different." "Observational error?" suggested the Doctor. Themos glowered at him. "I was most careful and checked them repeatedly. No, the inescapable conclusion, according to my figures, is that the distance between the Earth and the Sun is diminishing." He looked both triumphant and frightened by his own words. "But surely the apparent size of the Sun would therefore be increasing." "Ah, I see you are a sound reasoner, Doctor, but self-evidently it is not the case. What do you deduce from that, eh?" "That the guy's loopy?" suggested Perry in the Doctor's ear. "That the Sun itself is becoming smaller," ventured the Doctor aloud. "Precisely. Now do you see our peril? Either the Sun will shrink until it is extinguished altogether, or it will strike the Earth and all will be burnt to a cinder." There was an awkward silence, but before the Doctor could respond, Themos continued. I have proof that some effects of this change are already making themselves felt. Would you care to examine the contents of the jars on the lower shelf over there? He indicated the large glass specimen containers. The doctor went over and inspected them carefully. The camera medallion swung close to the jars, giving Perry a more detailed view of their contents than she would have wished. "Ugh!" she exclaimed. "What are those?" They were nightmare shapes of chimerical and distorted creatures. There was a two-headed snake, a rat with large translucent insect wings, a mongoose with 3 pairs of legs, and a fish with the claws of a crab. Themos explained. "These are the best specimens I could afford to buy from the traders. Others can outbid me. The dictator has a fine collection, I understand." "There is no doubt these are genuine?" asked the doctor. Themos looked puzzled. "Where have you been living these past few years, Doctor? Of course they are genuine. The point I was making was, where do you think they all came from?" "The East?" he ventured cautiously. "Exactly. At least as far east as men dare to travel, or are allowed to travel. And why are these things, simply part of travellers' tales for so many years, now found in such relative abundance?" "What," asked the doctor carefully, "do you believe happened in the East?" Themos sagged a little. The enthusiasm that had sustained him whilst expounding his theories seemed to be fading. "What indeed? There are so many stories, and much that is still hidden both by circumstance and intent. But I believe it has something to do with the changing position of the sun. There is a rumour that a great darkness has fallen over the East. The effect is certainly clear. Life has departed many lands, and what is left is distorted, as you see. And what has happened there will soon affect us." He smiled grimly. "You know, Doctor, I had hoped when the end came to be sufficiently drunk not to care, but sufficiently sober to observe the process, which I suspect will be fascinating, but perhaps a little uncomfortable towards its final stages." He tapped a conspiratorial finger to his nose. "I have been practicing for the event, but I haven't quite got it right." The doctor stepped forward and helped the little man into a more comfortable chair in the corner. "Had thought of asking the oracle when the world will end, but I am not certain I want to know." Themos appeared to be falling asleep. "How can you ask it?" demanded the doctor. He had been wanting to find out more about the mysterious oracle for some time, but couldn't swing the discussion round to it. "The usual way. Go to the temple." "It's in Rome now?" "Of course. Half a year here, half a year in Alexandria." And Themos fell into wine-assisted sleep. "Wow!" exclaimed Perry over the earpiece, as the doctor covered Themos with his cloak. "Well, this puts a whole new slant on things, doesn't it? Do you think whatever has happened to us has anything to do with these freaky creatures and the whatever has happened out east?" "Almost certainly," the doctor responded, in his indifferently sarcastic tone, which always infuriated Perry. "And? Is that all? Can't you be a tad more specific?" "I have an idea, but I don't want to talk about it just yet." "Does this mean I'm not going to like it?" "Perry, I really don't know what you'd think. Just try to be patient, please." Okay. So what are you going to do now?" "Let Themos sleep it off, then persuade him to take me to see this oracle." "Well, it sure sounds like the place to go for all the answers." "Meanwhile, are you going to explain about these tomb robbers?" Perry gave a condensed account of her deception, which amused even the doctor in his dry way. But one point did bother him. "Perry, how long were you outside the TARDIS to arrange all this? Has the transformation proceeded further?" "Like I said, I can handle a few more feathers. I'm okay." "Is that all?" "Well, I've definitely got wings growing, and I'd better be careful putting my feet up, because there are sort of little claws growing out of the back of my heels. You know, like birds have to hold on to branches properly." "Oh, Perry." There was a strong note of unease in his manner now. "No, it's okay, really. I decided not to let it bother me and to stay in control, at least mentally. I think it's sort of my way, symbolically, of getting back at them on Varos for what they did and how they made me feel. Proving myself to myself, you might say. She sighed. The memory would not go away. Doctor, I was so scared then. Her voice dropped almost to a whisper. When I was under that machine, I lost control and had an accident, like a kid. There was a long pause. Perry, perhaps I should come back. Hell no, Doctor, she replied sharply, her confidence and enthusiasm returning with a rush. Now her confession was made. You gotta stay out there and sort things out. She chuckled. Like you always do. I'm okay. In fact, I'm getting curious about this change thing. Looking at it another way is quite an experience. I mean, life swapping doesn't just come close. As long as you know you can get back to normal afterwards. She suddenly sounded plaintive. I will get back to normal again, won't I? Yes, you will return to normal as soon as we can regain our link with the Eye of Harmony. But don't get carried away with your present state. Remember, it is not natural to you, but partially the product of your subconscious mind. I will, Doctor. Like I said, don't worry about me. I'm feeling fine. The courtyard garden was grander than Ptolemy's own, but then Agricola's family had always been wealthy. Agricola's mother had greeted him, as always, with dignified composure, and, after a few moments' polite exchange of trivialities, she said, as she almost always did when the weather was fine, Lucius is in the garden. And the servant led Ptolemy along the familiar passage, and he emerged into lavender and thyme-scented peace and tranquillity. Agricola was there, in his usual shaded chair, and beside it, another chair had been set in anticipation of his coming. And as always, Agricola rose to greet him with a sort of childlike amazement at seeing him. He moved a little stiffly, and he held his left arm crooked at a slightly odd angle. There was a white streak in his hair, and a noticeable scar marked one side of his forehead. He looked older than Ptolemy, although he was in fact a few years younger. Cooled wine was brought out to them, and they talked. It was about inconsequential things mostly. The state of the garden, the latest performance on the sporting fields, the new play at the theatre. Occasionally they talked about the past, but only those few months before they reached India. Ptolemy took pains never to mention anything about their journey up the river, or what came beyond that. After an hour, or maybe two, if it had been one of Agricola's better days, Ptolemy would take his leave. His old friend would bid him farewell in a hearty, but slightly vague fashion, and Ptolemy would walk away with a rigid step. It was Ptolemy's regular habit to visit thus, usually the day after Nundinium, the traditional market every 8th day. It was also his penance. It had been his fault. Perry watched the monitor, which still showed Themos's workroom. The doctor was looking curiously about the clutter of antique scientific instruments, whilst he waited for their owner to sleep off his liquid lunch. But Perry was thinking about what she had said to the doctor. She had admitted to one of the most fearful and humiliating moments of her life. Now, how do I feel? She asked herself honestly. Well, pretty good, all things considered. Okay, now, have I got the guts to see it through and go all the way? Maybe? What have I got to lose? Except my nerve. The doctor said to be careful. Yeah, but I really do feel good. This time, I'm in control. If I want to, I can do it. She looked down at herself and the patches of feathers that mottled her body. They had certainly spread while she had been outside, but they felt okay, just warm and soft. She ran a hand through her hair. Yes, there were a few long feathers growing out of her scalp now. She suddenly giggled. What was the right combination of shampoo and conditioner for them, she wondered. And then she decided. She walked over to the door and stepped outside.